like they said, they're saying was one of the worst decisions ever made by a Supreme Court. And that's a fact to this day that they are what that decision was the worst decision ever made by a Supreme Court. There is a frequent appeal made by slavery justifiers concerning the status of African slaves when they argued that the Negro is one of the lower animals. This is an American professor, Charles Carroll, and this is written in 1900. In fact, they show a slide from a presentation where they show the gorilla, the chimpanzee, and the orangutan, and then the Niger next to these pictures of these three ape species as a species of ape. And this was in an illustration. I believe this was from 1900, and it is just a disgusting picture of a naked man in a tree next to three apes, and very poorly drawn, I might add. And so this stuff is still around. I'm sure it's still being taught that the Negroes are not a member of the human race. They are an evolved species. And it's just disgusting. They are men and women. They are our brothers and our sisters. And they were created by God the same as we are. We came from the same line they did. We all came through Adam. We all came through Noah. And then the nations were split up after Noah, obviously. And it is believed that the African American or the Negro or black community came from the line of Ham, which is one of the sons of Noah. And so we see this in coming down through, and there is no difference between a man of color or a man of non-color, which has always perplexed me over the years as why I'm called white. I mean, I'm not white. I'm maybe a little brownish pink, but I'm definitely not white. And so what do you classify me at? Do I have to be a blonde-haired, blue-eyed, pure white, milky skin to be called white? What shade is it when you're referred as less of a human being than a white person? And I would like to say people draw the lines at different areas. As far as I'm concerned, there is no line. And we are all part of that human race. Just like to give a shout out to David Breon Davis. He's a Pulitzer Prize winning historian. He argued in 2008 in his book Inhuman Bondage, the defining aspect of slavery was the animalization or bestialization of human beings. Again, the defining aspect of slavery is the animalization and bestialization of human beings. And if you can call something or someone less than a human, you can do anything with them you want. They're like a cow or a turkey or whatever kind of animal you want to think of. That's what level they are, and that's what they try to do to keep their slave-holding ways and to be able to make money off the use of human beings to be able to enrich themselves. And this was wrong. It always has been wrong, and it always will be wrong. By the way, slavery is going on absolutely to this day. And just to let you know, there are a lot of places on the face of the earth where you can be enslaved and are enslaved. In fact, the United States of America is listed as one of the countries that has slaves. And it's true. The United States still has slaves. There are sex slaves in the slave trade in the United States, and I believe that human beings are being forced to labor by being illegal immigrants and being forced to work in the United States, some with no or low wages. We saw that with the 7-Eleven thing that went on, where they brought these Pakistani people over there, put them up in their own houses, charged them rent, made them buy food where they wanted them to buy food, and then kept them so poor that they were basically enslaved. They had no rights, obviously under the law, because they were illegal, and they were treated basically as slaves in the United States, and this happened with a major retailer, 7-Eleven. It's happening also in the hotel industry. It's happening in the farming industry. It's happening in the domestic employment or domestic enslavement, where people hire undocumented women in particular and men for gardening, household chores, and they hire these people as a cheap way to get free labor and basically keep these people poor and make themselves rich. Okay, now let's get back to the pro-abortion side of things. Here is a pro-abortion advocate. They have been known to describe the unborn fetus as an amphibian or a fish and consider him or her more similar to a lower animal than a human. This is a statement made by Dr. Hart Peterson describing fetal movement during an abortion in 1985. He said it's like a primitive animal that's being poked with a stick, in that it violently reacts to this intrusion into the womb as it's being torn apart and killed. So he says it's less like a primitive animal that's being poked with a stick. It's just reacting to it. It's no big thing that the baby isn't really a human being anyway. So it's just it has potential for human life, but it's not really human life. So it's okay to poke it in to tear it apart and pull it from the womb. And this is the thought process that they use, and we all know as just moral human beings that this is absolutely immoral and corrupt. Here's something else that they say is that the human embryo starts out as formless as one of the ocean's floating flora, then develops the gill slits and the anatomy that characterize a fish, and later grows lungs and organism necessary to breathe air on land. Thus, they argue that the abortion should not be controversial, for in the light of evolution, it is clear that aborted fetuses are just lower animals. So that they see these babies as just lower animals like fish that hold gills. Now, one of the things that they say in this with their statement is that the human fetus develops gill slits. That couldn't be further from the truth. What they are developing that looks like quote-unquote gill slits during their formation is not actually breathing apparatuses that they're developing. It is part of the pharyngeal and the skull and those parts of the anatomy of the child as it's being developed. So where they're saying that this is these are gills, they're absolutely wrong because they do not know what they're talking about. So just like to point that out. And, like I said, again, if anyone wants to disagree with me, I have the right of moral law, God's law. And again, I go back to my argument that states that when the moment of conception, Jesus Christ was in the Mary's womb. And from that moment of conception, it was actually Jesus Christ. In fact, when she went to speak to her cousin Elizabeth, who was pregnant with John the Baptist leaped in his mother's womb when he heard the news that Jesus Christ had been conceived in Mary's womb. So we see a baby actually reacting to news from outside of the womb. So if this is a fact that Jesus was an actual human being from the moment of conception, he was God in Mary's womb, but a baby is a baby from the moment of conception in the mother's womb. So I'd just like to make that absolutely clear. And that's where my argument stands, and I don't think there's anybody out there that can refute me. Again, if you think you can refute me, please call 561-623-9429, and I would be glad to debate this with you on the air. We have a little bit over 10 minutes left, so we have plenty of time. Okay. There are books out there that are called "I Am Not a Fish," and this is by Christopher Hitchens, and this was written in 2007. This is a book that you can get. Actually, Christopher Hitchens, who wrote this book, basically is saying that the book is titled "God is Not Great," page 221, so he definitely is for abortion, and he basically is an evolutionist. And this guy, Christopher Hitchens, was not defending. I was wrong in saying that. He is not defending human beings in that they are not fish. He is basically saying in utero that they are. They begin as forms that are amphibian, gradually developing lungs and brain, and growing and shedding that now useless coat of fur, he says in here. And so, there are some pretty evil books and concepts going on out there. Now, let's just continue on with some of this rhetoric that's being used to argue pro-abortion and anti-abortion, or pro-life. Just as the key feature of pro-slavery rhetoric and rationalization was dehumanization of human beings with a darker complexion, the key feature of pro-abortion rhetoric and argumentation is the dehumanization of human beings who have not yet achieved full biological development, which in truth does not occur until after puberty and adolescence. So are they saying that because full development and biological and physical development does not take place in the womb, that even after coming out of the womb, full biological development does not take place until puberty or adolescence? And some say adolescence goes to 25. Nowadays it goes to 45. But that's just a comment of my own. But is it okay to kill a child up until what age if they're not a fully developed human being, if you're using this argument? I guess it could be argued that up until the age of adolescence, which is around 25 years old, that it's okay to kill them because they're not fully formed. Here's another claim that the unborn fetus, even if he or she is human, doesn't really deserve protection. Now get this, doesn't really deserve protection from destruction because he or she is a burden or a parasite or a contagion in need of extermination. Thus, one frequently hears pro-abortion advocates refer to unwanted babies as parasites or as an afflicting disease. Again, this rhetoric device is identical to the twisted justification of distraught and anti-miscongenionists before and after the freeing of African slaves in America. So the miscongenionists are basically people who believe that Negroes or black people or the African Americans, I don't want to offend anybody by using the title that they don't like, but I've got to refer to it as, in historical view, that it was the Negro race at this time. And they basically were saying they did not descend from Adam or from through Noah and Ham, his son, that they're saying that they were just basically parasites. And Negroes and Parasites was quoted by Dr. T. Brady in 1909. So let's continue on with The Fetus is a Parasite. This was written by an abortion rights activist, Rosalind Pollock Paczewski, in 1984. Free blacks in our country